Welcome to the Eversio Experience podcast. I'm Brandi Garden, the co-founder here at Eversio Wellness, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Desiree Caruso, naturopathic physician.
Mushrooms are symbols of interconnectedness, and we're so excited to connect you with the health, wellness, and wisdom that they have brought us on our journey to this moment. We believe mushrooms are critical to the maintenance of our physical well-being and our collective mental health.
Yes, our ancestors had deep cultural connections to mushrooms, but today they remain understudied, undervalued, and often misunderstood by much of modern society, and we are here to change that. Eversio means change, and it's our mission to change lives through fungi.
There's a mushroom for every moment.
And we're so glad that you're here to share this moment with us. And now, let's dive into the episode.
Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is really special. Over the past several months, Brandi and I have been walking chapter by chapter through her book, Healing Your Body, Mind, and Soul. Not just talking about it, but diving deep with the author herself. The stories, the breakthroughs, the moments that made us pause, reflect, and sometimes completely reframe how we see health, wellness, and living. So today, we're bringing you a curated compilation of some of our favorite, most insightful snippets from those chapter deep dives. These are the moments that stayed with us. The ones that cracked something open. The ones that reminded us that healing isn't about fixing ourselves, it's about coming home to ourselves. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been with us since the beginning, this episode is an invitation to slow down, to lean in, and to let the wisdom land exactly where you need it. Let's dive in. There's a line in chapter 1 that says, "If you listen to your body when it whispers, you won't have to hear it scream." How can someone actually start noticing those whispers in their own body before it's too late?
I love that. Your body's always speaking. Your body's always talking to you. Most of us just don't know how to slow down enough to hear it. So those whispers are things like, for me, it was the persistent fatigue. And I thought that was just because I had a stressful job like everybody else. But I think you know if you are feeling persistent fatigue that isn't normal for you. It could be recurring headaches. It could be that gut feeling that something is just off. And the best place to start is with awareness. So for me, it was journaling. It was slowing down. It was paying attention to different patterns. And the more we listen, the less our body needs to scream. And the minute you put awareness on the fact that you want to heal, you will notice things start to change for you. But you can't ignore those little whispers, or they will grow and compound and become something that can be physically seen in your body, not just heard in those little nudges.
That's so beautiful. And the exercises in the book, I think, are such a great testament to the chapter and to exactly what you just said, starting with journaling, starting with reflection. Brandi, you start this chapter with a quote from Hippocrates. "If someone wishes for good health, one must first ask oneself if he is ready to do away with the reasons for his illness." This quote is so powerful to me, and I think it holds a lot of wisdom. I also think that being sick actually serves us in ways that we might not even realize. What do you think about that? And what does it take to move past that?
Yeah, I do think looking back, I can see that sometimes not only me, but we as a collective unconsciously hold on to illness because it is giving us some kind of identity, or it's giving us sympathy from others or permission to slow down. And I think for me, I do see that I needed permission to slow down. I was in burnout. And when I got that diagnosis, when I had that prescription in my hand, it did give me permission. It gave me this sympathy from people around me. So for me, that was a really tough truth to face. Illness can become a story that we tell ourselves. Right. And it can feel safer to stay there than to step into the unknown of true healing,
Right.
which eventually I did come to. So the moment we recognize that, the moment we ask, what is this illness giving me? And am I willing to release that? That is when transformation begins.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. You also write in chapter 2 that healed patients are lost customers. I think that is a total bombshell of a statement, and it's a total reframe. Why is that such a heartbreaking truth, and what does it reveal about how our healthcare system really works?
Yeah, I mean, the system isn't designed to heal us. That's the truth. That's the truth. It is designed to keep us dependent.
Yes.
And that's devastating because it means that people we trust with our health are often operating inside a system that profits when we stay sick. And I think that's not always conscious, right? I don't think doctors are bad people. I know doctors did not get into their profession because they just wanted to be millionaires. There was a reason that they got in and a need to help people and want to do that. But I think once you're inside a system, it can become very difficult to see from the outside. And I know even in education, it was the same way. I see things so much differently on the outside of the education system than when I was a teacher inside of that. So, I mean, it's just facts. A healed patient isn't profitable.
Yeah.
That's hard to hear. And that realization, it both broke my heart and it lit a fire in me to start asking better questions about what real healing looked like for myself. And I hope others will do the same.
That's such an important word when you said it's designed to keep us dependent, because I think in previous times, a lot of us talk about the system is designed to keep us sick, and it's not necessarily designed to keep us sick, but dependent. And dependent can mean sick. There's a lot of truth in that, I think, for a lot of people. Later, your MRI results showed that your brain looked much older than your age. And one of my favorite quotes says that our purpose often sits right next door to the hardest moments of our life. And why was that one of the hardest, and how did it shape your path forward?
Yeah. Gosh, just when you say it, I can remember it. That was rock bottom right there. That was rock bottom for me. But it also became that doorway to purpose, like you said. Seeing my brain scan, being told it looked decades older than my actual age was so terrifying. I thought, if I keep going like this, what's my future going to look like? But as painful as it was, it also cracked me open. It forced me to find another way. And that search for healing beyond pharmaceuticals became my life's work. So I am grateful for it.
I love that. I think when we can turn our pain into passion and purpose, that's really when we're helping the collective consciousness. And it's a beautiful thing to see you do that. You write that drugs can be life-saving for acute conditions, and there are certain scenarios where they are necessary, but they're not designed for chronic disease. What do you think happens when we use a quick fix model for problems that actually require long-term healing?
Yeah. We end up managing illness instead of creating wellness is what happens, right? And if you spend your whole life managing an illness, are you really living your life? Quick fixes definitely have their place in emergencies, and thank goodness for them. But chronic illness requires daily choices, right? Lifestyle shifts, and it requires a lot of patience. And when we try to slap a quick fix on something that needs long-term healing, we trap people in dependency instead of giving them what I would consider true freedom.
You were really inspired by Robert Fulghum's metaphor of teaching as shining a light into dark places. I really love that piece in the chapter where you mention his book. What does that mean to you now after your own journey through illness and then healing?
Yeah, I think teaching isn't about giving answers to people, right? That would be easy to do. We have AI now to do that. To me, real teaching is about helping people see their own light. And after walking through my own darkness with illness and uncertainty and so much fear, I understood that the best thing a teacher or a healer could do was to hold a light so that others can find their own way. And that's what transformation really is. It's not giving people my answers, but helping them uncover their own truth. And that university time when I read that book, and the metaphor was so profound. A professor gave me a little piece of mirror as a graduation gift when I got my teaching degree, and I still have that. And thinking about, walking through the world and not being the know-it-all, not having all the answers, but being able to find the light and then reflect it into the dark places. If we were all doing that for others all of the time, the world would be a really different place.
Yeah, you talk about that in teaching, but I think that is really special how you have continued to do that in life with friends and the office and community and everyone in general. And I think that's really the special part is bringing that into life,
Yeah.
everyday life. You write that every great teacher eventually realizes they must become the teacher they themselves always needed.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you?
I think Mark Groves was the first place I heard that quote, becoming the teacher you needed, for sure was me. I had to become the guide that I once searched for in both the classroom and in healing. So as a young teacher, I realized I needed to model the curiosity and the patience and the compassion that I craved when I was a student. And I loved school, but there was something that was always missing there for me. So, and later in healing, I had to step into that very same role to stop waiting for someone else to save me
Yeah.
and instead become the teacher who could guide myself and eventually others through the journey. And that's what this book is about, is me just sharing that that of what I needed and what I learned hopefully can be a gift to somebody else who's on that same journey.
You also asked yourself when you were cleaning out your pantry, will this food cause or cure disease in my body? And I think that question alone holds the weight of massive change. It's a profound statement. And some may say that it's bold, it's cut and dry, it's sharp even. Was making that shift scary for you, or did it feel like you were finally coming home to yourself?
That's in that chapter. I remember the moment, and I remember writing about it, and I would say both. Scary because it meant that I was the adult in the room all of a sudden, right? No more outsourcing my basic choices to autopilot. But it was also wildly relieving for me. So my best friend Jen, in that chapter, I tell the big story about the day it happened. She sat in the doorway with me and I emptied the pantry. It felt less like restriction and more like it was curating what was going to fuel my clarity that was about to come. So I didn't think of it as punishing myself. It was like I was voting for future me with every new bite I decided to take. And yes, there were some dramatic goodbye speeches that day to the brie,
Brie
to a lot
cheese.
of, yeah, and, the sugar, and it didn't need to be that theatrical, but it was the reality that day. So I hear you if you're someone that is giving up something you've loved. I have a good friend that's just recently given up caffeine. It hurts. Have your goodbye, cry your tears. And it's, there's grief when you lose something you've been addicted to. So for both, I would say for me, it was both. It was terrifying and it was liberating. But for the first time, I really felt aligned in what I was going to put in my mouth.
You describe awakening as a veil lifting. Suddenly, life is full of meaning and oneness. What did that feel like in your body when that happened?
I would say we just were fighting with my headphones earlier as we started. I usually wear the big headphones and they're noise canceling. I wear them around the house sometimes and the whole world goes away. And it's like that. Like the moment noise canceling headphones kick in, except on the inside. If I can, if you know what that feeling, if you've never tried noise canceling headphones, I highly recommend. It's that feeling. Like my body softened, my jaw unclenched, and time stopped playing the hurry up soundtrack that I had lived my life in. So I think people think it will be like fireworks, but it's not. It's like this quiet click, right? Like the lens finally focusing. So suddenly washing the dishes was just washing the dishes. No side quest to fix the whole world before bedtime along with it, right? Presence feels ordinary in the best way. So simple that you almost miss it. So I would say, yeah, my body softened and peace replaced urgency.
Brandi, you open this chapter with Dr. Joe Dispenza's quote, and I love this quote. You say it all the time. We're all faced with great opportunities, brilliantly disguised as impossible situations. Can you take us back to one of those impossible moments and how you realized it was really the start of something bigger?
I do love that quote. I think I say it 10 times a day. People are going to ask me to stop saying it soon, but it's so good. Yeah, I think one of mine looked like this. A pandemic and a spreadsheet, which I didn't do spreadsheets, but my husband showed me one, and a very persuasive husband saying, let's start a mushroom company. On paper, impossible, right, at that time. But in my body, super green light. So up until then, I think I had been treating obstacles like closed doors. And that season taught me to check for the hidden invitations, right? The impossible wasn't a warning like I had always thought. It was kind of like camouflaged destiny. And once I stopped arguing with the packaging of it and said yes to it, then the mentors started appearing and the research started lining up. And the next step kept revealing itself like runway lights at nighttime. So when I stopped seeing the obstacles and started seeing the invitations, I would say the whole path just opened up for me.
Super cool. It's just that shift in perspective. How is the world working for you instead
Yeah.
of to you? I love that. You described the weekend when you discovered lion's mane and then you watched fantastic fungi as soul fire. I love that term. You said it felt like an arrow. You felt like you were an arrow finally aimed at its target. Or you also described it as this sense of enthusiasm, which is one of three ways that Eckhart Tolle describes awakened doing. That's one of them. Why do you think that enthusiasm is such a powerful sign that you're on the right path?
I watched that movie 3 times that night. There was a clear sign. And yeah, I love that you brought up Eckhart because I had read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and he does describe this. Like, there's only 3 states. You're in acceptance, you're in enjoyment, or you're in enthusiasm. And as I read, I was like, ooh, I could kind of look at my life as so differently then. Like, if I get a flat tire, it's not time to have an emotional reaction. We are in acceptance. And I think in the book, he says 90% of your life is there. But it was harder for me to identify enthusiasm as I went back in time, but I was in something different. And when I read that, I'm like, that's me right now, right? It's like this boom. So acceptance says, yes, I will show up. Enjoyment says, I kind of like it here. But enthusiasm is like, clear the runway because I'm landing a vision. And that lion's mane study, that research, and then the fantastic fungi movie, if you haven't seen it, I think it's still on Netflix. So well done. It felt like I was an arrow finally aimed at a target that I didn't even know was there before. So I would say enthusiasm collapses doubt because the energy itself becomes evidence for you, right? It's the universe sending you fuel with your marching orders. So enthusiasm is the soul's confirmation that you're exactly where you need to be.
Exactly. And people describe it as following the things that light you up, right?
Yeah.
When people say, follow your passion. Yeah, that's exactly what you did. You realized most mushroom products were underdosed or even misleading. How did you translate clinical research into real world quality? And how can consumers learn to look for that themselves?
Well, I think we were lucky because we are standing on the shoulders of giants, right? There were enough that came before us to give us a no example that we knew we could do better. And then we reverse engineered from the literature because there's tons of it. And I think there's a story that there isn't, but you and I know if we went on PubMed today, there are over 7,000 great articles about medicinal mushrooms. They talk about active compounds. They talk about extraction methods. They talk about doses used in study. And the label claims come second. So we third-party test the inputs before manufacturing, right? We dose to match outcomes in the studies, not just to fit a price point. And that was hard because that does mean we're a premium brand with a higher price point because we want it to work. And I think that's why a naturopathic doctor like you can get in line and get on board. It's just, we have to keep packaging honesty to me, right? We have to, for consumers, there's 3 quick checks. If you are looking, fruiting body extracts have to be listed, can't be myceliated grain. Standardized actives, right? Transparent dose per serving, no fairy dusting on the labels. And then independent lab results that you can actually see. For us, they're on our websites. Education dethrones hype every single time.
You ask whether this was ever truly a war on drugs or actually a war on consciousness. What convinced you that it was the latter?
Well, I think I started to learn that expanded awareness does not make you a better consumer. It makes you a freer thinker, right? Systems built on control don't thrive when people wake up. And it was like, oh, like, what is this world we've been living in, right? The more you know yourself, the less you can be manipulated by fear, by advertising, by authority. So to me, awareness is a revolutionary act, right?
Yeah.
It's quiet and it's inconvenient and it's unstoppable, right? Expanded awareness does not make you easier to control.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what scares the systems built on control. When
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's been written about for eons. But when I really saw it and saw it in myself and in my friends and in my family around me, the light went on.
Mm-hmm. You can't unknow.
You can't unknow.
On the same day that you retired from teaching, you made a massive life decision about how you'd move forward on your healing journey. What gave you the courage to step into that unknown?
I mean, I think it was equal parts terror and trust in the moment. I left the comfort of a pension, right? I worked for the government for the wild unknown of purpose. It wasn't bravado. It was integrity at that time. And when you see what's possible, pretending not to know hurts more than the risk. So leaving safety to follow truth is terrifying. I'm not going to lie to you. It's terrifying, but it's the only way to live fully awake. And I highly recommend it.
Something that is really cool in this chapter is that, and you kind of touched on already, is that people didn't join Eversio because they wanted a job. They wanted to be part of something bigger. And as a millennial, I can speak to that. That's definitely the thing. And this type of a business really goes against the grain from regular corporate, regular businesses. And I'm sure you probably received some resistance from others who thought that you and Craig were just dreamers and maybe even a little delusional. What really helped you execute and continue to establish that type of a culture?
Yeah, absolutely. There were people who thought we were a little unhinged, right? I mean, a married couple starting a mushroom and back then psychedelic focused wellness company talking about consciousness and meditation and human design at work. And yeah, it didn't exactly fit the traditional corporate mold. And we got a lot of side eye. But I think what helped us to stay the course was just being crystal clear on our why. And it sounds so cliche, but from day one, we really believed that work shouldn't just be a paycheck. We both had that. Right? I could have kept doing that. I had a very nice, comfortable government job, but work should be a catalyst for personal growth and expansion. So we read a book called The Buddha and the Badass by Shinlakiani, and that just really validated that for us, the idea that you can bring spirituality and disruption, for Craig, into the same room and build something extraordinary, like that was it. So we just kept returning to our mission and our values, and especially when people didn't understand. And we hired people who generally wanted to change lives through fungi. Like, that's a small crowd, and I'm so grateful we found them. But we created experiences to attract that. We have retreats. We do meditations together. We do workshops. And I think that just embodied the culture instead of just writing it on a poster. We actually do these things and we share them with the community so people can see it. So when resistance came, instead of shrinking in, we just treated it like a filter. So if someone thought we were delusional for prioritizing mental health and play and presence at work, then they simply weren't our people. And then that clarity helped us to keep executing on the kind of culture that we knew we wanted to build and want to keep building.
At the end of the chapter, there's this really resonant prompt for reflection. It goes, reflect on what it means to align your work with your values and passions. It seems like something that is so obvious, but there is an overwhelming majority of people who are just simply not living in alignment with their own values in all of their lives, right? Like things in their life and the things that they're doing just aren't representative of that. And why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it comes down to conditioning and survival, right? Most of us were raised to prioritize stability. I have so many friends going through this right now. We're learned to prioritize external success and other people's expectations over inner alignment. We're taught to choose the safe path, even if it costs us our health or our joy or our sense of purpose. I think there's also a nervous system piece. When your body has been living in stress or fight or flight for years, the idea of changing careers, of starting a business or reshaping your life to match your values can feel truly terrifying. So I think it's just easier for some people to stay in the familiar discomfort than it is to step into the unknown, even if the unknown holds possibility. So my hope for all of you friends who are listening, and really the heart of this whole chapter, is to remind people that alignment isn't a luxury. It is a form of healing. When your work reflects your values and your passions, it doesn't mean that life becomes perfect or easy, but it does become more meaningful. So if you are listening and you are feeling out of alignment, this is not a criticism, it is an invitation. You don't have to blow up your life overnight. You can start with a small, brave choice, like one honest conversation, one boundary that you're going to set, one step toward more authentic expression of who you are. And then over time, those steps add up. And then that's when your true people start to appear. And yes, for me, I did quit my job and start a whole new thing, but I had a really good partner in crime that really had to give me loving nudges along the way to get there. So the brave choices are a big deal.
Okay, you have this metaphor that is in this chapter that is just so genius. And it talks about imagining stress as withdrawals and meditation as deposits into a bank account, this analogy. How did reframing stress this way shift your emotional regulation in daily life?
Yeah, that honestly changed my life. For years, I was overdrafting my nervous system without even realizing it. I think so many people are. If you're a teacher, I know you are. Parenting, withdrawal, deadlines, withdrawal. Building a brand new company, multiple withdrawals before breakfast.
Big one.
Big. And yeah, meditation became finally my deposit, right? The thing that replenished my internal balance. So once I saw it that way, everything, it's like it just clicked. Instead of feeling like stress was a failure on my part, it was just math to me. And if I want stability, I need more deposits than withdrawals. Like, it's just math. It was so simple. So I think just that simple reframing gave me emotional regulation I had never had before. It meant fewer tears and fewer flare-ups and far more moments of joy. So meditation taught me that I could stop overdrafting my own nervous system. Like, how empowering is that? It's the only time I've ever loved math.
So empowering. Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Double whammy. Okay, so shifting to 2023, that's where you wrote that you felt like you were aging backwards. And I mean, we talked about it with your hair coloring, right? Where like you're having more growth of more color and less of the gray. You also describe having more joy, less stress, you're off all the pharmaceuticals. How did learning the neuroscience and quantum physics pieces behind meditation really help explain what you were experiencing?
Yeah, learning the science made everything make sense for me. Like, it was just the coming together. So I read a book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and it explained in scientific language what my soul already knew to be true. And I mean, I don't know how many times I said yes while I was reading it, but the neuroscience just showed me that stress literally wires the brain into old patterns, and meditation unwires them. So quantum physics showed me that my thoughts and my emotions are constantly interacting with a field of possibilities, of unlimited possibilities out there. Epigenetics showed me that I wasn't a prisoner of my genetics, which is what I had always been taught. My environment and my emotions were influencing how the genes expressed themselves. So when my inflammation disappeared, when I felt like I was aging backwards, I finally understood why. Science finally explained what my soul already knew, and I was just catching up.
You also write that meditation is learning to be relaxed in the heart and awake in the brain, to return to the present moment again and again without judgment. How did learning to be the witness transform your healing journey?
Yeah. I mean, becoming the witness changes everything. When you learn to observe your thoughts instead of getting swept away by them, you create space. Space to choose differently. Everything's a choice, right? To respond differently, to be different. You get to choose to show up how you're choosing to show up instead of it just being the reaction that is a condition or a pattern or a program you've been running maybe for 30 years. It's the difference between reacting from those old patterns and instead responding from presence. So witnessing my thoughts gave me freedom from them, because some of my thoughts I had not been aware how intrusive those thoughts were. We talk about, I can't remember who said this to me, but a friend calls it the roommate. The roommate that's always there in your mind. You need to tell them to shut up sometimes. And the more you shut them down, the less they'll talk to you. And when I got freedom from that roommate, it just became the foundation of my healing. It was the beginning.
What I noticed in this chapter is that there's this beautiful thread of trust woven throughout. what if we all just trusted that things would work out? Do you think people who seem to have it all figured out or who are successful and who we look up to, do you think that they're actually living from that place of trust? Is that it?
Honestly, I don't think people who look like they have it all figured out are controlling life better. I think that they are trusting it more. I think that trust doesn't mean that you don't take action or make plans. I think it means that you stop gripping so tightly, which is how I lived for so long. I think when you live from trust instead of control, then you are more adaptable and you are more creative and you are more open to opportunities that you couldn't have planned for anyway. So what I've noticed is that people who live from trust tend to recover faster when things don't go as expected. That is my husband. It's one of my favorite things about my husband, Craig. He does not interpret challenges as failure, ever. He sees them as redirection. It's his genius. He doesn't even know he's doing it. So I think synchronicities thrive in that mindset. They don't show up when we are forcing an outcome. They appear for us when we are really willing to meet life halfway.
There's this exercise or this prompt, this nudge within the chapter to see yourself 10 or 20 years from now. And I love when you invite readers to picture themselves. Picture yourself 10 or 20 years from now. Why do you think future self perspective is such a powerful tool for decisions, for making decisions about our health and then our life today?
Because future you has clarity that present you doesn't. And at 50, I can see it. Like hindsight's 2020. When you imagine yourself 10 or 20 years down the road, you instantly zoom out of that short-term discomfort that you might be in and into long-term truth. You stop asking, like, what's the easiest thing for me to do right now so I can get out of discomfort? And you start asking, well, I did, what's loving to me? What is sustainable for me? I have goosebumps all over my whole body. What actually matters to me? My body's always listening, and it's listening right now. It's like, oh, you're asking. Future self perspective is especially powerful with health. Like that's me feeling it in my body right now. If you continue, when you came to work with us at Eversio, I think 3 years ago, you posted something on our social media, and I can't remember who quoted it, but it was something about if you continue eating or moving or sleeping or managing stress the same way you are now, does your health improve or decline? It was a life-changing question for me, Dr. Des. Like if I keep doing and I had changed my eating. Like it was so layered, my healing journey, as everyone's is. I knew I needed to change the way I ate. I knew I needed to change the way I moved. I needed to move more and not in a stressful way, adding yoga, all the things. I knew I needed to get to bed. I'm terrible about staying up late, but I had zero experience with managing stress. And I knew that if I continued to manage stress the way I was, my health would not improve. In one Instagram post, that came to me. I saw what I would look like further down the road. Like meditation was not an option for me, and I probably needed to do it twice a day. So most of us already know the answer to that question. I'm going to ask it to you again, listeners. If you continue eating, moving, sleeping, and managing stress the same way you are right now, does your health improve or decline? And I know you know the answer. And that perspective turns small daily choices into acts of self-respect instead of punishment. It is not punishment to not, do whatever your thing is that you don't want to be doing. It's not about fear. It's about making every action you take like a vote for the type of person you want to be.
That's powerful. What I also love too is how you said that your healing journey was layered. And I think when we think of a journey or a goal where we're trying to get somewhere and be a certain person that we want to be, we think of it linearly. We think of like this exit, then this exit, then you turn left here, then you turn right here. And it's a series of things, but it's actually moving through the layers. And that can be very different directions. And it's really nice to think of it.
Yeah.
That
And
way.
it can be backwards sometimes, right? I think we think it's like this. You're going to constantly be moving up toward your goal, but it's not only jagged, it also can mean down for a bit and then back up along the way. It's never perfect.
Nope,
It's not
never.
pretty.
Nope.
Freaking hot mess, actually. But
Hot mess. But then that segues perfectly into this theme of control with intentions. So in this chapter, you write, you only realize how intentional you wish you were after you've lost something. How can we take that message and regain control of our intentions for our life before we're forced to look back with regret?
that line came from lived experience. And whether it's health or relationships or time, we rarely appreciate something fully until it is threatened or it is gone. That is the human experience. Why do we do that to ourselves? The way we reclaim intention before regret is by slowing down enough to ask better questions right now. Like, ask yourself right now, what am I prioritizing? What am I tolerating that is costing me energy? This is a big question for me this year. What am I postponing that future me will wish I'd started sooner? You won't regret starting something sooner. And it's not a goal you're setting for yourself. It is who do you want to become? And what are the little actions you're going to take every day that are going to be a vote toward that identity of you? So intention, it isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's choosing again and choosing again and choosing again to act from awareness instead of on autopilot. Your body loves autopilot. It will just get up and do the same thing. You will live the same day, like Groundhog Day, over and over and over until you become aware of what's leading you where you don't want to be and what you're missing out. So just getting present, just being aware.
When you talk about codependency in this chapter, it almost feels like less of a relationship issue. And I think as more of being like an out of balance within ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you see codependency as an invitation to come back into alignment rather than something to judge or shame?
Absolutely. I don't see codependency as a flaw. I see it as information. It's a sign that someone has lost connection with their own needs or their own boundaries or their own sense of self in some way. And that does not make them weak. I have been there. It makes them human. And when we shame codependency, we miss the opportunity to heal it. When we see it as an invitation back into alignment, then it becomes really empowering. It asks you to reclaim responsibility for your own happiness instead of outsourcing it to someone else. Again, something you say all of the time. No one is coming to save you. Healthy relationships require two people who are both willing to grow individually and together. Codependency is not a life sentence. It's just a signal that it is time to come home to yourself.
There's this powerful idea that is woven through the chapter that we are love. We are love. And when we live from newsflash, we're love. When we live from that place, that's where love finds us. What does it look like in real life to be love instead of searching for it?
Being love looks like living authentically. It is laughing more. It is dancing in your kitchen. It is speaking honestly. It's setting boundaries without feeling guilt. It's choosing kindness toward you first, toward yourself first. When you are what I think of as being love, you are not scanning the room for who might save you. You are fully engaged in your life, and that energy is magnetic. Again, I have watched it around me in these last few years so clearly. Love does not find us when we are chasing it. It finds us when we are embodied, when we are present, when we are open to it. So when you are aligned with who you really are, love recognizes you instantly. I literally have this on a big painted, beautiful piece of art behind my dining room table. I've said it to my kids 1,000 times. If you are looking for love, stop. It will find you when you start doing what you love and being who you really are.
Totally. I remember both you and Craig saying, just do something you love and be you and love will find you. I love how
Did it find you?
It did find me. Okay, I love this question that you pose in the chapter. How would your relationship with your child transform if you viewed them not as a responsibility to mold, but as a spirit to guide and learn from? What actually shifts when parents adopt this mindset?
It's a hard one. We have to stop rushing. The relationship becomes really collaborative instead of part of a hierarchy, which is what we were taught. So no blame and shame. We live in Canada, I think in North America, in many cultures, we are taught, the queen is here, and then the rest of the government, and then politicians, and then teachers, and then parents, and then kids are this like trash at the bottom of the heap. And we have to stop that. When you stop trying to mold a child into who you think they should be because you feel like you're higher than them on a hierarchy, you create space for who they already are to start to emerge. And that is where trust grows on both sides of the relationship, because you start listening more than directing. That was so hard for me. Like if you have been trained and conditioned to parent one way for the first 10 years of your child's life, which was me, you really have to stop talking, which was so hard for me. And you have to start listening, observing more than correcting, learning more than teaching. And what surprised me most, I think, was realizing how much wisdom children carry when we are willing to meet them as equals. And I was a teacher, an elementary school teacher for 20 years as well. This wasn't just my own children. This was looking out at these 30 souls ahead of me that I knew that I had more to learn from them than I would ever be able to teach to them with a curriculum that was handed to me. They show us our blind spots and our patterns and the work we still have to do, often without saying a word. If it triggered you, thank them. That is your work.
It reminds me of that saying, well, that's just how we've always done it.
Yep.
Right? But just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that we should continue to do it that way. Can we be curious? Can we be introspective? There's a line in this chapter that I think will resonate with so many parents. And it goes, and it resonated with me, and I don't even have any children.
No, but you are one. And I think we all, if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I'm not a parent, you have parents.
True.
So just flip that and put it into that perspective. And I think so much can come out of something. You might not feel like you're the child anymore, but you always will be.
And we can reparent ourselves.
Yes.
That's the first child we ever learned to parent.
Yes.
So this quote goes, there are no handbooks given out when babies arrive. And so much to unlearn. I think that was actually my favorite sentence in this entire chapter. And I cried after this chapter. It was my favorite. But what were some of the biggest things that you personally had to unlearn in order to parent more consciously?
Yeah. Well, every time you say unlearn, I think it's Alvin Toffler who says that the illiterate people in the centuries to come will not be the people who can't read or learn. It will be the people who can't unlearn. And then do the relearning required. And that is so apparent in this parenting question, because one of the biggest things I had to unlearn was the idea that fear equals responsibility. When my kids were younger, especially because my children both have PKU, so they have a metabolic condition. When they got those diagnoses, I parented from fear of getting it wrong, fear of the consequences of that, fear of failing them. And I had to unlearn the belief that control would equal safety. And I had to replace that with trust in my children's own intelligence. I have two very intelligent, beautiful human beings that I get to call my kids. They trust their bodies. I didn't trust their bodies like I should have. So they need to trust in their bodies, their own. They need to trust in their ability to learn through experience. So letting go of guilt was a huge one for me. Forgiving myself for what I didn't know yet was essential to becoming the parent that I wanted to be. Thinking of our obstacles becoming opportunities, which is a theme throughout the book as well, was never so clear as having these kids.
My second favorite line in this chapter, it stopped me in my tracks. It goes, every moment is both the teacher and the gift. So first, what does that quote mean to you? And second, how does viewing parenting through this lens change the way that we experience even the hardest moments?
I am going to get that tattooed on my body one day. Okay, probably not. I'm probably not getting tattoos, but every moment is both the teacher and the gift. Like, if we could just memorize it and just say that. If you're not a meditator, you could still close your eyes and repeat that. If you're a meditator, make it your mantra for a couple weeks. Every moment is both the teacher and the gift. To me, it means nothing is wasted. And I love that. It's that meltdown. I've been there. The argument those poor choices, every moment is teaching us something. For me, it was about patience. It was about boundaries. It was about what does love really mean to me. It was teaching me about myself. And the gift is the awareness that comes from seeing it that way. When we stop resisting those hard moments and we start meeting them with curiosity, they soften. And I have been in the grocery store with the screaming toddler who's screaming the F word, and you are embarrassed. But trust me, on the other side, I watch those parents in those moments, and I am the one who will go and say to them, "You're killing it. And I see you, and you should never be embarrassed or apologize for your child's meltdown in public." That is reality. And the people who are judging you probably just don't have kids, and their opinion should not matter to you. They do not sit at your table. If they're not in the arena, their opinion does not matter to you, and we have to learn to get over that. I think when we stop resisting those hard moments, they still challenge us, but they no longer define us as a failure. And parents often feel this way. Parents, you can relate. Parenting becomes less about surviving stages and more about growing through them together. There's so much to learn there, and they're not going to be like that for very long. So enjoy it. As weird as that sounds, you're growing together, and they should be documented and laughed about later and enjoyed as much as possible. We hope that you learned something new here today. If anyone you know could benefit from what we shared in this episode, please share it with them. And if you're interested in adding mushrooms to your life, then you can use code PODCAST15 to save 15% on your entire order at EversioWellness.com.
If you haven't yet left us a rating and review, subscribed to this podcast, or followed our social media accounts listed in the show notes, we would so appreciate that. And if you're not sure where to start, you can take our Mushroom Wellness Quiz. Thank you so much for sharing this moment with us. Until next time, be well.